Islam promotes violence. Muslim women have no freedom. Islam was spread by the sword. What if I told you almost everything you've heard about Islam is misunderstood? And not just by non-Muslims, even Muslims get some of this wrong. Let's be honest. If your source is random TikTok comments, we've got a problem. Because the truth, it's not what the media shows you. It's not what social media argues about. And it's definitely not what you think. Muslims worship a different god? Oppression? Violence? We're breaking all of it down. And the last misconception might completely change how you see Islam forever. Watch this till the end. Let's clear something up right away. Islam is one of the most talked about and misunderstood religions in the world. And the problem isn't just misinformation, it's half information. You know, the kind where someone reads one post, watches one clip, and suddenly becomes a full-time expert. So in this video, we're not debating, we're not arguing. We're just breaking down the biggest misconceptions about Islam. Simply, clearly, and honestly. And some of these are going to challenge what you've believed for years. But before we start, comment the biggest misconception you've heard about Islam. Let's start with one of the biggest ones. This is probably the most common misunderstanding. A lot of people think Muslims worship a completely different God than Christians or Jews. But here's the truth. Allah literally just means God, not a different God, not a separate deity, just a different language. Think about it in English. You say God in Spanish, Dios, in Arabic, Allah, same concept. And here's where it gets even more interesting. In Islam, Jesus, Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, isn't rejected. He's actually one of the most respected prophets. Yeah, we'll get into that more in a second, because most people have no idea about that part. You've probably heard this before. Islam was spread by force. People were forced to convert. But is that actually true? Yes, there were wars in Islamic history, just like in every major civilization. But here's the part people leave out. In Islam, faith is not valid if it's forced. There's a clear principle. There is no compulsion in religion. Think about that for a second. If people were truly forced to convert, why do we still have massive non-Muslim populations in places that were ruled by Muslims for centuries? India, Egypt? Parts of the Middle East, different religions, still there, still thriving. Forced belief doesn't really work anyway. You can force someone to say something, but you can't force what they believe in their heart. Islam spread rapidly for many reasons. Trade, community, teachings, justice systems, not just war. And what's even more misunderstood is how Islam actually defines war and violence, because the next misconception is where things get really twisted. This one is probably the most sensitive, and also one of the most misunderstood. A lot of people see a Muslim woman wearing a hijab and immediately think, she's forced. She has no freedom. She's oppressed. But have you ever actually asked her why she wears it? Because for many Muslim women, it's not about being controlled. It's about choosing how they're seen. Think of it like this. In a world obsessed with appearance, where everything is filtered, judged, and compared, the hijab is almost like saying, I'm opting out of that system, like uninstalling the society pressure app. For many Muslim women, it represents identity, faith, dignity, not weakness. Now let's be real. Are there places where women are treated unfairly? Yes, but that's culture, politics, or misuse of religion, not the core teachings of Islam. Don't confuse what people do with what a religion teaches. And this next misconception is probably the biggest reason people fear Islam today. Let's talk about violence. This is the one that shapes how millions of people see Islam, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. You've probably seen headlines, clips, or quotes taken out of context, and they all seem to point to one idea, that Islam promotes violence. But here's the reality. Like any religion, Islam has verses about conflict, but those verses weren't revealed in a vacuum. They came during specific times, specific wars, specific situations. Taking them out of context, it's like reading one line from a movie script and thinking you understand the entire story. That's like watching 10 seconds of a movie and saying, yeah, I get the ending. In Islam, there are clear rules about war. Limits, ethics, boundaries, protection of civilians, no destruction without reason. It's not chaos, it's controlled and heavily restricted. Context doesn't excuse violence, but ignoring context creates misunderstanding. And when people only see the extremes, they start to believe that's the whole picture. But here's something most people never think about. Not all Muslims are the same. Okay, let's clear this up. There are nearly 2 billion Muslims in the world. Different countries, different cultures, different languages, and somehow people think they're all the same? That's like saying everyone on the internet has the same personality. Imagine that. A Muslim in Indonesia lives completely differently than a Muslim in Saudi Arabia. A Muslim in the UK is not the same as one in Nigeria. Yes, they share the same core beliefs, but culture shapes how people live those beliefs out. Think of it like this. Same religion, different lifestyles. And honestly, this is where a lot of confusion starts. People see one example and assume it represents everyone, but no group of 2 billion people thinks or acts the same. And the final misconception, this one goes deeper than all the others, because it's not just about misunderstanding Islam, it's about how people judge it entirely. Now let's talk about the idea that Islam rejects Jesus. This might be the biggest misconception of all, because a lot of people think Muslims reject Jesus, but that's not actually true. In Islam, Jesus is known as Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, and he is one of the most respected prophets in the entire faith. In fact, he's mentioned in the Quran more times than Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In some contexts of discussion about his life and miracles, Muslims believe Jesus was born miraculously to Mary, without a father, and they believe he performed miracles, spoke as a newborn infant, he healed the sick, and brought life by God's permission. So no, Muslims don't reject Jesus, they deeply respect him. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Islam actually says Jesus will return in the end times, and when you understand that part, it completely changes how you see the connection between Islam and Christianity. So let me ask you, did you know that about Jesus and Islam? Or was that completely new to you? Drop a comment. I want to see what surprised you most. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.